What's the best measure of this? Just check out the Nobel Prizes. I tallied them. Okay? How many Jews have won the Nobel Prize? In the sciences, here they go. 25% of all Nobel Prizes in the sciences are won by Jews. How many Jews in the world? About 15 million tops? 15 million? How many Muslims in the world? 1.3 billion, which is huger, way huger than 15 million. How many Muslims have won the Nobel Prize in the sciences? 2.5.
Wow.
2.
Wow. That is a stain, a big stain on how a religion can significantly play a role on the progress and development of people who adhere to it. You should look very closely.
Wondering how many secrets of the universe lay undiscovered because 1/6th of the population of the world is not a participant on the exploration frontier.
Think about what he's saying right now. Golly, Neil, you're hitting something so deep, so hard. How many geniuses are there that are Muslims in the world that if they weren't indoctrinated to ignore or downplay the advancements of science and to delve into this, what you're talking about, would make significant breakthroughs, but because of the ideology, it's been stunted, it's been stopped, and they aren't doing it. We got to change something. Good morning, everybody. Neil deGrasse Tyson's 20-minute takedown of Christianity. I really look forward to hearing him. Great communicator. This is a scientific mind. Someone who doesn't care to identify with the label atheist, though is pragmatically an atheist. They don't believe in any of the gods. And I think there's more liberty to not having to pin someone down to a name, especially when that name is so misunderstood or even viewed in such an allergic reaction to most people. And so call me whatever you want. I'm just saying the simple facts. Let's hear his takedown, 20-minute Christianity takedown.
In America, 90% of the nation would claim to be religious. And you define this in a way that's unambiguous. You don't say...
I'm curious if the numbers are still that and when this takedown video was taken.
Well, do you go to church every Sunday? You don't ask that question. Plenty of people go to church who are not religious. They go to get a date or so. They go for the cupcakes or something. They don't go to be spiritually enlightened.
Right.
So you ask a different question. You say, is there a God that listens to your prayers?
Yeah.
If you answer yes to that, you're religious by anybody's definition, because your understanding of a deity is that that deity is monitoring your daily affairs. So that's unambiguous. This number's dropped in the last couple of years, but it's about 90%. Turns out if you go to college and get an advanced degree, a master's or a doctorate, where these are degrees where you actually question the state of existing knowledge. The undergraduate degree doesn't really do that. You're learning from textbooks that are written by somebody else. Your doctrines are already there. The higher degrees imply that you are questioning the very fabric of the knowledge you had previously learned. Among that community, it's 60%. It has dropped.
So the higher you get in terms of your educational skill and the tools you've learned from the prior knowledge, building off the backs of giants, the percentage of religious people drop down. So now it's 60%.
Well, that's interesting. Let's keep going. How about scientists of all stripes? So biologists, chemists, let's include engineers as well. People who have formal scientific training, mathematicians as well. Okay, what happens next? Drops to 40%. Now, if you look at this number, it looks like, wow, so scientists, the public is 90%, scientists are 40%. No, the drop is not that significant because every scientist has an advanced degree. So in fact, the drop is not from 90 to 40, the drop is from 60 to 40. So becoming a scientist is not as big an effect on whether you're religious as you might otherwise think. Most of the drop comes because you're educated beyond the level of college.
Right.
So that's 40%. So now you go to elite scientists, members of the National Academy, highly accomplished subset among scientists, the number drops to 7%.
Wow.
There was a headline in Nature, the British journal Nature, which said after this study was released, 93% of elite scientists reject God. So that was supposed to be a shocking headline.
You could see why it would be.
I look at that and I said, that's not even interesting. That was the trend line anyway. What's more interesting, which was not the headline, is that 7% of elite scientists pray to a God. Isn't that a more interesting fact to you? Isn't that kind of interesting? The most accomplished scientists in the world in that community, 7% of them still pray to a personal God. I think that is deserving of more study than the 93% who don't.
Once you've hit that level on this particular area, why would 7% believe in God at all? And that's the interesting thing. Like, you can look at it both ways. Both ways is like, dude, why is it that 93% of scientists in this particular field don't believe in a God, don't pray to a God, obviously aren't buying it, but 7% do? Well, wouldn't you want to study those 7 to see why? What reasons are they?
Because something's going on there. We don't know what.
But then again, to push back against Neil just for a second to say, wouldn't you think that because belief is inherently a social, cultural thing that people have held to these religions so long, who's to say those 7 aren't still holding on to a vestige of something due to their social circles, due to their whatever it might be, their emotions, there might be several reasons as to why they might actually draw those conclusions.
And I have confronted people on this. I would say, to the most sort of vociferous in the atheist community, I would say, you're beating the public over the head, telling them, why are you doing it? And I'm thinking, before you beat the public, why don't you beat them over the head, okay? No, I'm just saying, if you're gonna rank, if you just, because you understand that first, because if you can't convert that 7%, you've got no hope in the...
I mean, dude, there's so much here though, Neil. Like, if I could speak to the 7% and go, okay, what is your research? What are you a Christian? If you're a Christian, do you really know New Testament material? Do you know critical scholarship? You know, they would mock someone probably who entered their field and didn't take serious the critical research that has been done by the scientists in their own field. And I would just ask them to look at the critical scholarship within the field of New Testament or Old Testament or whatever their religious system is.
General public. That's all I'm saying. This is among the ranks of the scientifically educated. Now, philosophers basically invented atheism. And if you check the statistic for philosophers, it's below 1%. There are no the only religious philosophers there are, they're like theologian philosophers, right? If you subtract the theologic philosophers, this number is essentially 0, all right? So they're basically birthed atheism,
Wow.
the philosophers. And there's this talk, I don't know here in Australia, does the Bible in the public school class or not? No, is it by law or is it just by tradition? Is it by law? Okay, so in America there's this understanding that the state and the church are separate. And by and large, that's been honored for most of the history of the country, by and large. And what's interesting about America, a point that was a little bit alluded to earlier today, is that it was founded on the principle that the state has no religion. The state is indifferent to what religion you might have. So that means there's no authority over you that's going to tell you who and what to worship. And that's a state that we all take for granted, but so many places in the world that is not true. Well, there's a case in New Jersey where a middle school kid was lectured to by the history teacher in a public school, and the history teacher said, if you don't accept Jesus as your Lord and Savior, you are going to hell. And there's a little Muslim girl there said you are already damned to hell. First point. Second, that Noah had dinosaurs on his ark. Third point he made is that Big Bang and evolution are just theories and you can take them or leave them. So I don't, like I said, I don't get into these. I just don't. We got people who do this. We've got the four horsemen. We got our boy here who's coming up after. We got people who fight this stuff. I'm not one of those, really. I'm doing this because, like, I know you're all. This is the bone I'm throwing you, but I don't do this. So, but then I thought about it and I said, I have an op-ed. A letter to the editor on this that I can write. And I left out the part about Jesus. I left that out because if that's how he feels, he wants you to be Christian. That's okay, fine. I left that out. I went to the rest of what he said. And this was my letter as it appeared in the New York Times. People cited violation of the First Amendment when a New Jersey, that's a separation of church and state, essentially. New Jersey school teacher asserted that evolution and the Big Bang are not scientific and that Noah's Ark carried dinosaurs. The case is not about the need to separate church and state. It's about the need to separate ignorant, scientifically illiterate people from the ranks of teachers. That's the problem.
I agree.
If he wants to believe Jesus is a savior, that's not synonymous with being scientifically illiterate, because 40% of American scientists pray to a personal God. What is identical with being scientifically illiterate is that if Noah was a human being, he did not have dinosaurs on his ark, because humans and dinosaurs did not coexist, all right? Every one of those scientists knows that, even the 40% who pray to God. So this is how I've sort of split the kingdom there. Then you get the billboard wars. Okay, this was fun. Big Bang Theory. You got to be kidding. God. All right. So this goes on. This is what we put up with. All right. So then then there was like, let's come back. Praise Darwin, evolved beyond belief. Freedom from religion found it. So the billboard wars are in progress here. There's some people who are like okay with God and okay with sort of how things evolve, so they ride the fence. So here's a bumper sticker: the Big Bang Theory, God spoke and bang, it happened, So they're excited about both God and the Big Bang. But then we had this idiot back in May, Judgment Day. Did this Judgment Day stuff reach below the equator? Jeez, okay. Yeah, it was. Now the good thing is unlike other predictions, like Jesus will come one day, this had a date, okay? You could test it. This was like easy to test. You just sort of wait around for it, all right? So now it turns out that May 21st was only the day Jesus was supposed to show up. The actual end of the world is October 21st.
That's because he did predict that May 21st was supposed to be the end and then pushed it another 6 months out. He was wrong. So the end was supposed to happen, just to be more factual on this. I did deep research on this with Harold Camping, and yeah.
So the end of the world is still to come this year. This is directly from the website. So I had to tweet. So this is May 21st. So on May 21st or May 20th, I tweeted this: if Jesus actually arrives May 21st, it'll be easy to convince skeptics.
Bingo.
If he doesn't show up, do the faithful become atheists?
Of course they don't. They're definitely not going to do that.
That was my question. Now, in a Twitter stream, it's a live conversation with complete strangers.
Well, I'm not saying some didn't, but some probably did.
Everybody depositing their 140 characters worth of thought. So here this is. There was a huge reaction to that tweet. Now, you would expect that most of my followers, or at least a big fraction of them, would be sort of atheistic. So you'd expect people to say, this guy's an idiot. Why are we even spending any time on them? Well, one such person did make such a reply, but not in the way you might think. No, anyone who's read the Bible know this camping asshole was full of shit from the start.
Yep. Go figure.
Okay. So what do you do with that? So this is somebody complaining about the prediction of Jesus coming because he says this other guy doesn't know jack about the Bible, but this guy does. And went on, there are other places where people quoted that one can't know when Jesus comes. So the fact that this guy's saying he knows means he doesn't read the Bible. So this is what's out there. People who are ready to vociferously argue about who knows the Bible the least. September 11th, 2001, we just had our 10th anniversary of that. I happen to live 3.5 blocks from what became known as Ground Zero. This image was taken outside my dining room window. The North Tower is on fire. These are 110-story buildings, the World Trade Center towers. This image is the instant the South Tower was hit. It was hit from the left. You could not see the entry point because we're blocked by this other black building. It's a hotel, a 50-story hotel, which is just kind of in the foreground. You see part of the South Tower punching out. This is before the jet fuel had ignited. And when you ignite jet fuel, you set a deflagration wave, not a bomb wave. It's a different kind of wave. It's not accompanied by a shock. This is a split second after that, the fuel has ignited, creating more pressure. And within a split second of that, the entire South Tower was engulfed. And this is fragments of plane and bodies and office coming out the other side. Now, why am I dragging you through this? 62 minutes later, both buildings had collapsed. And there was blue sky where there was once these buildings. This is directly outside of my apartment building, and the emergency vehicles had come. This is the pulverized World Trade Center dust that had settled several inches of it. I say this because shortly after this gentleman got up, President of the United States, George W. Bush. This is actually my photo of him. I was in that room at that time when he spoke. See the medals there on the table? I was on a committee to tell him who to give those medals to, the Presidential Medal of Science. And so he actually gave them to everyone we told him to give them to, except he didn't read their citations. He's smart enough to know not to pronounce any of the science words that were in the citation. So he put the medal around the neck, somebody else read the citations. Shortly after September 11th, he gets up, I don't remember where he gave the speech, and he says, in an attempt to distinguish we from they, he says, our God is the God who named the stars. This is before I was on his Rolodex. You know, I could have saved him from himself, okay? It's a loose quote from Genesis that says God named all the stars in the sky, okay? First of all, it's the same God, so he's got that wrong. But Allah, God of Islam and God of the Jewish God, it's the same God.
Technically, yes, even though theologically Christians will differentiate.
They call them different
and maybe Jews, some
names, but it's the same book delivering you the same God. Apart from him getting that wrong, he says, our God is the God who named the stars. What he just didn't know, 2/3 of all stars in the night sky have Arabic names. 2/3 of all stars that have names these are all the Arabic star names. All of these. I don't think this is the point he wanted to make. I just think he figured that out. Like I said, it was before I was on his Rolodex. And so you say, well, how does this happen? How do you get a culture where stars in the night sky are named by them? What was going on? How did that happen? And you have to go back 1,000 years, and you get to Islam in what's the golden period of Islam. In that period, algebra was invented. Algorithm is an Arabic word. All these words that begin with AL, 10 to 1, it's an Arabic word. Our numerals are Arabic numerals. Did you pause and reflect on why we call them Arabic numerals? We just call them that, right? But somebody did good stuff with these numerals. It was in Baghdad 1,000 years ago where they invented algebra. And there was advances in mathematics, agriculture, engineering, all of these fields.
I am curious to know if we've since, I think this sounds like he's in 2011 when he's doing this lecture, because he said a decade after 2001 is when they're talking. I do wonder if there's been any progress in the last 15 years, where we've discovered that actually it goes further back. I've seen some memes suggest, or some, articles and headlines that suggest that maybe we've discovered, you go way back into Mesopotamia, you could see them doing these kind of math. So,
all at a time when Europe was disemboweling heretics. So something changed. 12th century, this gentleman came around, Al-Ghazali, a Muslim scholar, learned. At this point, Islam is maybe just a few hundred years old. People are reading the Quran and interpreting it however they sort of want to and feel like it. There's not a coherence to the practice of Islam until he comes around and codifies the behavior of a good Muslim. In much the same way St. Augustine, in his book, Cities of God, codified what it is to be a good Christian. How do you burn the witches? There's a recipe for that. They got to be upside down so the blood does, it's a whole itinerary for how to be a good Muslim. And in his writings contain the assertion that the manipulation of numbers is the work of the devil. 2, actions that you see in nature are the will of Allah. Well, if you drop a stone and it falls, Allah willed that. If that's your explanation, your curiosity stops. You combine everything happening in nature being the will of Allah to the manipulation of numbers being the work of the devil, and the entire enterprise of that golden era collapses. Now, historians, when they look at that era, they say, well, the Mongols came and so historians think of the world in terms of wars and kings. They think less about it philosophically, about intellectual movements or the absence thereof.
Yeah.
Islam rose again after this period, didn't have science associated with it. No new inventions in math.
True.
You look at the period of Islam in Spain, the period where the great Alhambra was built. There is no attendant science going on there. It's done. It's gone. And it is a cost that exists to this day. There is 1.3 billion Muslims in the world today who are not participants on the frontier of scientific discovery.
That is really unfortunate that has been the repercussions of what happened at the collapse of the Golden Age for Islam, especially in light of the recent century of chaos that has taken place still in the 21st century.
What's the best measure of this? Just check out the Nobel Prizes. I tallied them, okay? How many Jews have won the Nobel Prize? In the sciences, here they go. 25% of all Nobel Prizes in the sciences are won by Jews. How many Jews in the world? About 15 million tops? 15 million? How many Muslims in the world? 1.3 billion, which is huger, way huger than 15 million. How many Muslims have won the Nobel Prize in the sciences? 2.5.
Wow.
2.
Wow. That is a stain, a big stain on how a religion can significantly play a role on the progress and development of people who adhere to it. You should look very closely at it.
I can't bring myself to call economics a science. I'm sorry. I just can't. I've tried. I've really tried. I'm sorry. That's how many. And the physics one was a Pakistani physicist, not a Middle Eastern physicist. So Jews have 50 times the number of Nobel Prizes. They're 1/80th of the population of the Muslims. It has 4,000 times the impact. I lose sleep every night wondering how many secrets of the universe lay undiscovered because 1/6th of the population of the world is not a participant on the exploration frontier.
Think about what he's saying right now. Golly, Neil, you're hitting something so deep, so hard. How many geniuses are there that are Muslims in the world that if they weren't indoctrinated to ignore or downplay the advancements of science and to delve into this, what you're talking about, would make significant breakthroughs. But because of the ideology, it's been stunted, it's been stopped, and they aren't doing it. We got to change something.
What thoughts have gone undreamt of?
I tell you, that was a very interesting, powerful lecture. I like Neil's connection between intelligence and emotion. The way that he presents makes you really consider, like, why science is so important. And we need science communicators like that can make difficult things easier to understand, because a lot of science is counterintuitive, very difficult to wrap our minds around. What is your thoughts about that reaction? Let me know in the comment section. I'm really interested in hearing what your favorite things are about Nils and what he presents. Be sure to subscribe and hit the bell so you're notified every time we react to a video. Look, I hope more and more people consider the seriousness of science and could see how ideologies play a significant role in stopping us from getting ahead and probably curing so many illnesses, diseases, the length of our own lives. We want to live longer. We want to be healthier. That stuff matters, and no holy book has ever given any significant change to making that change, if you will. There's always promise of immortality, but like not real action to making that real in this world that we know exists. Thank you so much for watching. Like the video, comment down below, share the bad boy out, and until next time, see you then.